Hey folks, welcome to the first episode of 2020, LongShorts, and I have with me Mr. Sharad Chopran. Sharad, I really like giving an accented spin to your last name. How's it going, man?
It's going very well.
This is very different from your usual response.
This is a new start to the new year, to the new decade. I'm not going to say can't complain.
But you were complaining today. You were saying that it's getting warmer already.
Yeah, that was the shortest winter I've ever seen.
Yeah. So, but I keep on hearing grandmother wisdom that by the end of Jan something happens and it starts getting colder again.
Hope so.
Yeah. And we are discussing temperatures. So this is an excellent segue into our guest today. We have Mr. Pranesh Chaudhary, founder of ZunRoof, a rooftop solar company and rooftop solar EPC company, if I am going into the technicality of it. And Pranesh is ex IIT Kharagpur grad, and so obviously we kind of know each other from that time, and it's a pleasure to have you here. You've come all the way from Gurgaon, so
yeah, pleasure is all mine, Nikhil. Sharad, thanks for having me. One change I would want to say, we are not a solar EPC company. We want to call ourselves a home tech startup.
Okay.
Where we focus on reducing electricity expense of urban India through rooftop solar and energy monitoring.
Okay. So let me redefine ZunRoof as the home tech solar company, and there are a few things on our mind. We kind of have been looking at the solar space in our country for the past, I would say, more or less a decade. It has evolved at an aggressive pace, but there are always structural issues which come out, and you are close to the ground, so we like to get into that in a bit more detail. But before we go there, usual reminder to all our listeners, obviously, feel free to search for Transfin Podcasts on Deezer, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many other apps that you like. And hit the subscribe button so that you get that nice little notification every time an episode goes live. So, Pranesh, first things first, let's go a bit deeper in your story. I mean, you worked in the domain of, I think, credit analytics for some time. You were in Capital One, and after that you moved into consulting, and then from there you moved into startup mode. Mm-hmm. But you picked a very, very precise area, which is frankly quite unrelated from what you were doing earlier. Yeah. I know that your co-founder and partner has a background in solar, so I'm sure that had a role to play in terms of narrowing down. Yeah. But how did it all start? Like, first, I mean, I think there was one. I think we did meet each other in London also at some point in time. Yeah. So at that time things were pretty different, and now I guess your day-to-day story has taken a dramatic turn.
I think if you stay in London for a bit, I think the appreciation for sun evolves. This has gone to a whole new level.
Yes, he was like, yeah. Everybody keeps complaining about the weather here, so I might as well do something about it.
Yeah, no. What's your journey? It's fascinating. I mean, obviously, as Nikhil said. So, how did it all happen?
Yeah, so I think Nikhil already mentioned that out of college, I joined Capital One, worked in credit card analytics for about 4 years, then moved to Essex Lake Group, which is a boutique consulting firm, helped a bunch of financial services and insurance companies in US and UK geographies before coming to India in 2016. And the idea at that point of time was that everybody was starting up, and we did not really think it through that what are we going to start on, right? So Sushant and I sat down, and I was like, Sushant is one of the most intelligent friends that I have. If I have to start up something, he is the right co-founder. Right. There were days when we just went through everything that a consumer does on a day-to-day basis, because we were like, we know that we will do a B2C startup. That's what we understand, consumer insight. We are ourselves consumers, so we will do that. So we went through things like, okay, what does one do when he wakes up? He brushes his teeth, and these were the kind of weird ideas under the sun that we were discussing. Finally,
so solar was not the first.
Solar was not the first thing. Okay. No. So we discussed like grocery startups, food tech, all the ideas that were flying around at that point of time, right? We then came down to that we need to pick a sector which at least one of us has some experience in, and that left us with two choices: analytical consulting, or solar. While Sushant also doesn't really have a solar background, he worked in solar thermal, which is a totally different technology. But he had a very clear idea that solar PV's prices are coming down, and he has seen the impact engineering does even in big power plants. And so that's where this idea started forming, that if we do something for residential customers in solar PV, that can help reduce the electricity bill of households. And then we started thinking, okay, so what can be done? How do you really drill it down, and why is it already not being done? Okay. Right? And we met a bunch of solar vendors or EPC companies which were working at that point of time. We realized it's difficult to convince a residential customer to go for a 2-3 lakh rupee purchase for a new technology till the customer really trusts you and knows that if he installs this system, he'll get decent output out of it. And that's where we decided, okay, so we need to figure out what engineering benefits can we bring in through the design of the system. Then the other factor that we had to bring in was how do we create a brand for ourselves, right? To begin with, we just use our IIT tags. So we created a Facebook page. Whoever showed any interest, we used to go to their house. And people thought that, okay, so there are 2 IIT engineers who have come to our house to design a solar rooftop system. Might as well give them a chance. That's how we got our first at least 10-15 orders in the first 1 year when it was just 2 of us. And then the third thing we wanted to figure out was, okay, why will a customer keep this on their roof for the next 45 years? So you need to create something so that the customer sees it on a day-to-day basis. What output is he getting and how does he maintain it? How does he ensure the maximum bang for buck? In India, if you invest in anything, you want to ensure that the output is good enough. So that's where we started. That's where Sushant's experience with IoT started coming in. So we started developing our own hardware to ensure that the system is diagnosed and maintained properly.
So if we kind of just backtrack here from a moment, I mean, if I ask you what is the service proposition of ZunRoof end to end, how do you describe it?
Okay, so we call it 3 phases: design, delivery, and diagnostics of solar. So design phase is where if you are a customer and you want to install solar on your rooftop, you want to know what direction should the panels face, what angle of inclination should the panel be at, how will my roof look post installation, what is the shadow profile of your roof. What that means in layman terms is that if the roof is big enough, on a point A versus point B, where should you put your panels? If there is, let's say your neighbor's house is taller than your house, there is a lift room, water tank, there is shadow projected to come on your panels through the course of the year. How do you ensure that doesn't happen? So all that comes under the design piece, where what we did was we have created an app. You take your smartphone, go to the roof, take one 360-degree image of your rooftop, which you can do using.
So you ask the customer to do that?
No, we actually send a person to the customer's house. The customer can actually do it themselves. It's a heavy ticket. It's a high ticket purchase. We know that the customers want to see somebody do this. Just professional. So we send a solar consultant.
Was there some learning there? Like, did you earlier expect customers to naturally do it, and then you realize you should send someone to develop that additional trust and visibility, or was that something you went with?
We actually started by going to, because it was just 2 of us. So we just went to the customers and we wanted to figure out how Indian customers think before writing a check. So we anyway started with that. The one thing that we did after first 1 month was that we started charging a fees. So we used to do free visits. We realized a lot of people were just curious. They were never going to convert into an order. So we started charging a fees of 600 rupees for doing the design visit. We still charge a fees in most geographies. With increased competition, we run offers on that and all that. But we charge a fees to segment out the real serious customers versus curious ones.
So you are there. You meet so these are, I'm guessing, all owned properties, right?
All naturally. So you own the rooftop.
So you go there and through the app you document, for the lack of a better word, and then you come up with the additional insights on how to actually structure your product there.
So the way the app is designed is, once you take one image, you upload it to the app, everything is then shown on the customer's phone immediately. So it shows the customer what is the shadow profile, as I was just mentioning, the shadow profile of the roof, what is the right direction angle combination, because a lot of time customers have different myths in their head, or they would have been advised by somebody that can you put it vertically on your walls, so that it doesn't, so that you don't lose out on any area. So we're able to show them, or if they have any vastu concerns, so the customer sees that if they do any of this weird configuration, how much output will they lose from the projected output. Similarly, we have a virtual reality setup in the app, which shows the customer how their roof will look post installation. It's a pretty good aha moment for the customer to see that there was an empty roof filled with panels, It's like a Lenskart app. It shows you different design options. You can select one, and then it will show how your roof will look. So all this creates a good design experience.
This is kind of superimposed on the 360-degree image that you have taken in the beginning, right? Okay.
And then we take the customer's electricity bill, look at the electricity usage of the last few months, input that in the app. There's a very basic calculator which does the calculation and then tells you, okay, so given your electricity usage, you should go for an X kilowatt system. And then the app has a very transparent way of showing showing you the pricing as well,
Right.
which is where the brand or the trust part comes in.
Right.
The customer sees that the pricing on their app,
Right.
and there is no hidden cost. Like if the GST is to be charged, it's mentioned there. If there is a government subsidy in some state, it's
Right.
mentioned there.
Right.
If there's a financing offer, it's there in the app. We have taken it out from the usual negotiation, which impacts the experience that you have while buying something which is 2 lakh, 3 lakh rupee purchase.
So
Right?
they can instantly see the payback and
They can
do that
instantly
calc-
see all that, like we have graphs which show them how is it better than doing
Yeah.
a PPF investment
Yeah.
or a gold investment,
Right.
right? So it shows the customer all those things.
Yeah.
So when you say 2 lakh, this is like what typically like a 5-6 kilowatt?
5-6 kilowatt system.
Right.
Yeah. And again, the average system size varies by city here.
Right.
Like Delhi, for example, we have done over 800 installations now in Delhi alone.
Right.
It's been 6 kilowatt average size. A Bangalore and a Hyderabad would be 2.5 kilowatt.
Right.
So it could be that different just because of the way people use their air conditioners.
Right.
How many air conditioners you have and how many air conditioners you use on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
That completely changes the average.
That must be
so
quite an
that-
important piece of intel for you, right?
So number of air conditioners or AC ownership is one of the main drivers for us. Like
Right.
if somebody doesn't own an AC, we actually train our inside sales people to tell the customer that, hey, you do not need to go for solar right now. Wait for it. Maybe the prices will fall down further. Maybe your electricity usage will go up.
Right.
Then you should go for it.
From your initial preliminary visit, where you send the person to actually installation, how much is the lead time typically for a domestic retail customer?
So the one thing which we are pretty proud of is that our conversion, if it has to happen, 2/3 of the time happens on the spot.
Okay.
So we don't make another visit to the customer's house.
Okay.
So this is another insight we got when we talked to the existing companies at that point of time, that the CAC is too high in solar.
Right.
Because again, for any expensive product, you will need to make like 5-10 visits. And we were very conscious that we'll make one visit. We'll have the app show everything to the customer, all the offers, everything.
What's
show
your
to the
duration
customer.
of such a visit typically?
45 minutes to 1 hour.
So you do it like extensively just to ensure
to explain everything to the customer, all the offers and everything. Then and the customer has to make an offer, a decision right then. Otherwise, we'll keep sending them SMSs or WhatsApps to follow up. But that will be it. We don't make another visit.
Sure.
Once the customer books an order, it depends which state he is a part of, because there's a government subsidy
Right.
and net metering. There are 2 approvals which need to be done in this one.
Right.
Maybe a lot of people are not aware of this concept called net metering, so I would just like to take a minute to explain that.
Yeah.
So what happens in this is that you install panels on your rooftop, solar panels on your rooftop. As light falls on it, DC direct current is produced. Connect it to an inverter, which is a grid-tied inverter, which converts this DC into AC at the same voltage and frequency that you're getting in your house. And then your meter gets replaced. The usual meter in your house is a bi-directional meter, which is a unidirectional meter, which only counts in one direction. It gets replaced by a bi-directional meter, which then counts how many units did you use of electricity and how many units were produced by solar.
Got it.
And at the end of the month, let's say you use 1000 units, you produce 800 units. The bill will show 1000 minus 800, you pay for 200 units.
Correct. Yeah.
So that net metering needs to
Because
happen.
you are basically producing it in a decentralized manner yourself.
Right.
In a way.
The grid becomes, let's say, a massive battery for everyone to supply electricity back. Your energy can neither be created nor destroyed.
Right.
And there are no batteries in the system that we are selling.
Right.
That's why the prices are low. That's why the customers are going for it. It's a good payback system. Right. So now subsidy and net metering, there are 2 approvals that need to happen. Of course, there are cities like Bangalore where there is no subsidy available. So the process is slightly different there.
Right.
But for these 2 approvals, it could take 15 days to 2 months just to get the approvals in place. And then the installation bit, we usually finish within 3 weeks from then onwards. And once that installation is complete, then the electricity board has to come in and actually physically replace the meter. That again takes 15 to 2 months, depending on which city, state, time of the year you are in.
So the pricing that you're mentioning, that's post-subsidy benefit, that's the end price?
No. I was talking about the pre-subsidy price. Actually,
Right.
The prices have come to an absolutely really, really low levels.
Okay.
Like when we started out, we remember selling 1 kilowatt system at roughly around 65,000, 70,000 rupees per kilowatt.
Right.
Right now, if you are a customer in Lucknow or Ahmedabad or Hyderabad or Delhi, you need to pay roughly around 30,000 rupees per kilowatt, which is the post-subsidy price.
Okay.
Which is exceptionally low.
Yeah.
It brings down your payback period to like 2.5 years. Only.
Right.
So for like a lakh 50 upfront investment should get the ball rolling in terms of getting the equipment set up.
Yeah.
For typically 5 kilowatt, let's say.
Yeah, 5 kilowatt will be like 1,50,000.
Yeah.
There will be some extra cost if you want some customizations done.
Sure.
One insight, for example, we saw is that almost all the customers in India want their system to be elevated.
Okay.
So what happens is...
What do you mean by elevated?
Okay, so like people don't want solar panels to be kept directly on their roof.
Okay.
They want a structure of let's say 4 to 6 feet height
Okay.
to be created
Right.
so that they can still use the area beneath it, which is a big difference than let's say what you see in US or Germany, right?
Right.
The roofs are slanted there.
Yeah. I mean, here there is a use case for the terrace, right?
Yeah, the use case is different. We consume our roofs very differently. Children play, servants sleep, clothes are dried, different use cases.
Now that area becomes storage area.
Yeah, and we have had customers in West Delhi where people have used this as a small go down of sorts. So that customization increases prices by a slight margin here and there, but that's roughly, as you were mentioning, like 150,000 for 5 kilowatt is a good approximation in almost all cities now.
You know, like it's interesting because like right now you mentioned like 2 to 3 year payback period, 1.5 lakh post subsidy benefit. There's net metering benefit that you get. I mean, you are effectively paying only for 20% of your electricity usage. And then if you kind of square that with, the apprehensions, I think a lot of, I would say, observers or investors have with like residential retail level solar. It doesn't square with each other, right? I mean, what exactly is going on? I mean, why number one, why aren't people doing it? Or if people are doing it, why are those apprehensions still there?
Okay.
In your view?
Yeah. Okay. So if we were having this conversation, let's say a year ago, my take would have been slightly different because it felt like an uphill battle to get every new sale done even till 1 year ago. It has just changed. I don't think people are not doing it at all. So we have gone to like tier 2, tier 3 cities and we have gone to a city and
I guess you pitch it as a kind of an investment opportunity.
That's how we do it.
So communication has been the key difference, is it?
Okay, so there is no one single silver bullet. It can't just be for selling a 2 lakh rupee purchase. It just can't be. Right. So you have to ensure that the first thing when they see your ad on a digital medium, maybe Facebook, Quora, LinkedIn, wherever they see your ad, it creates a very clear image in their head that if there is no batteries, there's a net metering system, you sell electricity back to the grid, and it's a 25-year low maintenance or no maintenance system that you are getting. Right. Then when you send your person to a customer's house, there has to be a no hassles approach. He goes to the roof, takes one image, that's it. The customer immediately sees everything on their phone, transparent pricing. Once the customer books the order, you tell them very clearly that these are the approval processes. This is the time that it will take. Right. That's one part where I don't think we have done the best job, but it just takes too much time to deliver the order. Right. We were comparing ourselves to US and we realized that despite all our complaints with the Indian approval processes, we are almost at par in terms of the delivery time that it takes to actually get a system.
When you say delivery, I mean, when does it start and when it ends when you get the meter?
When it gets net metered.
Okay.
But that's the time when you start seeing the benefits as a customer.
So that's 3 to 4 months or something like that?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And we have seen days when it was like 8 to 12 months as well for one customer. So it is improving every now and then, right? And then once the system has been delivered, we install our IoT device to allow the customer to diagnose and monitor the system on a day-to-day basis. We send them alerts like, hey, today you are in the second quarter in Gurgaon. You need to get it cleaned now.
So that's like the final step in your value chain, right?
So to ensure that the customer's investment feels safe. Like if you buy a share, you go to share account to check, right? How is it performing, right? It's the same thing. If people have invested money, they want to see how it's performing. So all that really adds up. So the customer's point, I think we have seen customers now going for these solar panel roofs in all these cities. So I'm seeing the conversion rate improve. I'm seeing customers from different profiles convert. Like a couple of years ago, we had the theory that only ex-servicemen and doctors are converting to solar. In one of my interviews, I said this as well, right? But right now, there is no one single profile which cuts through that, okay, these are if we book 500 orders a month, these are, let's say, 50 of these. No, all sorts of people are converting to solar. So just coming back to the question that Nikhil, you had about why does it not tie back to the investor interest or the apprehension that people still have?
I mean, not even, I don't know about that. I think I'm talking more from the perspective of just narrative. Right. Because as an outsider from the sector, my perspective is pretty much driven by. I remember, when those big commercial solar projects, when bids were going on, and there was basically a record low number. I don't know, like 2 rupees,
2.44,
right? After that, then there was a lot of noise about how that price point is not viable,
and we agree actually.
And I think a lot of commercial providers were then struggling with actually getting the land acquired to develop those. I know that's a different segment, but that has spoiled the narrative sometimes for the broader solar space as well, right? I mean, I'm sure that you meet investors or guys, who don't know about the space in as much granularity as you would.
And there was a sort of, there is a bearish view as well. I think, was it 2018 or 2019 where solar output actually declined? So you hear these things, I don't know if that is correct or not, but so that sort of, how does that square?
So there are different plays which are happening, right? So I remember a funny sentence somebody told me, I don't want to quote the name. That person told me कि ये जो खेल है इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बनाने का खेल है,
Right.
हाथी का खेल खेलेंगे, घोड़ा का खेल खेलेंगे,
Right.
और आप जो है जमीन पे तलवार लेके उतर रहे हो रिटेल सेल्स करने के लिए.
Right.
So that's what I think, the play that you're talking about, like the commercial installers and the people who are doing, that's a finance play. That's not a technology play. That's not an engineering play. So while it would be wrong for me to comment on the profitability or the viability of these 2.44 and all these numbers that you hear, there people are just competing on really low IRRs, which is not the case with retail sector.
Right.
Retail sector has its own challenges because here the customer it's a high touch business, right? The customer expects a lot of service during this 3 to 4 month period when you are delivering. You have to create tech to operationalize all of this, right? It's like when we are doing, let's say, we're currently doing like 400 to 500 orders a month.
Right.
At any point of time, last 3 months orders are also live.
Right.
That means there are 1500 houses which are being installed this month, and it's like constructing a floor on somebody's roof.
Right.
There are 15. So now you need to ensure that a lot of non-sexy tech also needs to be developed,
Right.
which ensure that if there are 20 runners who are going to collect checks from 100 of these houses, then we don't need a manager to talk to these 20 people.
Right.
They know where they have to go to. To develop all those is something which a lot of people have not given attention to.
Right.
And so it's very easy for people to sit back and then say that, hey, it just won't work out.
Got it.
And we have heard a lot of people tell this to us as well. We get the feel from the real ground, right?
Yeah.
I talk to my salespeople and I see that everybody's conversion rate has gone up.
Yeah.
The average incentive that they were making has gone up. So I see all the metrics improving.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of the times when people write their op-eds or their articles on these things like how is solar not working out, and we have seen a lot of these coverage happen in mainstream newspaper as well.
Right.
I don't think they even know the right prices.
Right.
I remember seeing one, and again we won't take the name, but from leading newspapers in Bangalore, which said that the 1 kilowatt price is 65,000 rupees. How will the customers buy? That was like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
The prices are really almost half of it.
Yeah.
Right? So people are just not aware of what the on-ground pricing now is.
Right.
Because there was so much scale that China brought to the entire PV panel manufacturing,
Right.
that the prices really crashed.
Right.
And with GST coming in, a lot of the fly-by-the-night operators went out of the picture as well.
Right.
So that actually helped us.
Right.
Because now that the vendors you are working with are people who are like registered, who actually create invoices, right?
Right.
So all that really helped. Plus, there used to be a lot of funny play around VAT being zero in some states not being zero. All that has gone out.
Yeah.
So a lot of these factors, when people are looking from a 10,000 feet view, people are not able to see. From the investor's perspective, I think it's just about like it's a fear of missing out which drives them. Maybe one VC takes a bet on solar, and that's what will open everything.
I mean, like, come to think of it, like it's very interesting because like when you even look at like food tech, right? I mean, you say food tech, right? But at the end of the day, there is a big operationalization cycle that goes behind it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we keep on like talking about how, I mean, Amazon is not an e-commerce company; it's a logistics company, right?
It is.
Effectively,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of those cogs and wheels which are moving in the background.
Right.
And when you were like talking about non-sexy tech, I mean, I assume that kind of came up from your analytics background as well. I mean, at that time, you must be looking at a lot of non-sexy tech, and you know the value of it.
Yeah.
But those operationalizations actually do make a better proposition at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
That's what I think you guys are. But I mean, I think one very interesting thing comment that you made was on the whichever Bangalore-based daily, quoted 65,000 per kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
But then you, I think, went into almost 20 seconds of detail in order to break that down, that how that number does not make any sense.
Yeah.
I guess these guys just don't have that much, I mean, they are kind of forced to take a very high level view,
Yeah.
right, to sell the stuff. So that obviously becomes a factor. But if you look at like as ZunRoof, so the biggest differentiation for you at this stage is how you're using tech to optimize the process.
Yes, clearly. If I was pitching right now to investor, I would say the entire design app that we have built is the differentiator.
Right.
But I've stopped convincing myself of this.
Right.
Customers don't place a 2 lakh rupee order with you because your app is really shiny.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They place the order because the price has to be lowest and the quality has to be the best.
Yeah.
Now you have to find a balance between how do you keep the selling price lowest and still make your margins.
Yeah.
Right? To do that, you have to ensure that all the if we have like 200 plus vendors spread across 50 cities now, right? How do you manage all those vendors? We have 50 plus salespeople on the ground meeting hundreds of customers on any particular day. How do you ensure that keeps running despite all the regulatory changes that keep happening on us in every state every few months?
But like if you look at in terms of inbound versus outbound sales, how do you see that? Like, are people aware of it, or you actually have to proactively or you're seeing like some light?
we are seeing some light. Okay, so
Right.
that again depends by which state we are talking about, right? Gujarat has been a revelation. We entered Gujarat like 6 months ago.
Right.
Everybody knows solar, right?
So there you don't have to like show you don't have to show the positive graph there.
No. Yeah. So like in all our marketing meetings and all, when we are teaching or we're like training our people, it always used to be that, hey, don't try to sell ZunRoof. Just try to sell solar first.
Right.
If people are convinced about solar, only then they'll take a bet on us.
Right.
It's no more the case in Gujarat, for example, right? You don't need to sell solar. So now you have to tell them what our differentiators are.
Right.
So now is the first time when our IoT devices, our virtual reality setup, all those things are allowing us to have a much better conversion rate, control our CAC, and get more and more roofs.
And sort of, I'll ask some very silly questions from a customer standpoint, because one is, do consumers feel like they're locked into a certain energy requirement? Let's say I get 3 more ACs in my house. Right. So how does that change the process? And
you can always upgrade.
You can so you do you need more panels as such, or more real estate to actually meet your energy? Like, is it modular like that?
It is completely modular.
Okay.
But of course you need area.
Yeah.
Right. Like 1 kilo, and that has also come down in the last 4 years by around 15-20%, but that's been like the extent of improvement. So for a 4 kilowatt system, the minimum requirement that you will have is 320-350 square feet.
Okay.
And the reason I talk about 4 kilowatt, if you have one AC, you are a normal one AC runs for 8 hours in the night user, you need 4 kilowatt system in India.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So it requires 320-350 square feet of a rooftop area. If let's say you buy 2 more ACs sometime down the line, I'm assuming you'll slightly have more area on the rooftop as well, because 320 square feet is, if you're not, if it's a 1 bedroom house, it will be a 600-700 square feet at the very least, right? So you'll have some area left over. Okay. But it's a play of real estate as well. Yeah.
And sort of, what is the lifetime of a typical panel? Like, does it need replacement, or like the 1.5 lakhs, does it cover like say 10 years, 20 years? Is that something?
It covers 25 years at the very least.
Yeah.
So all reputed brands, or in fact every brand that we have used, has at least 25 years of warranty on their panels.
Right.
The warranty is on the production.
Okay.
So there are 2 sorts of product warranty and a performance warranty.
Yeah.
Product warranty is for 10 years on all these panels. Performance warranty is 25 years.
Right.
What that means is that if you get, let's say, X output in year 1, you get at least 90% of that output even in year 10, and 80% of that output even in year 25, which almost means that it's a linear, like it will stay at what level you are buying right now. It will stay at that level.
Yeah.
And the year 25 mic also, it's not like it will lose all its value. The expectation that will still have 40-50% output left at that point of time for the next 3-4 years at least. So it's pretty good for the lifetime of a family's house. Right. How we think of it. Yeah.
Are there some like taxation benefits as well? Like I'm asking it from a very
not for
perspective, like from a depreciation perspective, because you have an asset there, right?
Yeah, not for a residential customer.
Oh, okay.
For factories, yes, there is accelerated depreciation available.
Right.
We don't do much work in that space, so I'm not really up to date on what the exact rules are right now.
Right.
Is that a conscious decision to sort of stay away from B2B angles?
Yeah, it is. Our edge is all about doing good tech.
Okay.
We tried and met a lot of people who have big factories or who have, let's say, 1 megawatt kind of area available. We realized, you don't meet the right decision maker in even meeting number 5. You keep meeting, you first meet the factory manager, then you meet the CA, then you meet the general manager, and you never meet the decision maker. That's one problem. And the second is, they don't really care about the engineering or how the roof will look, which our normal house owner does. Okay. That's our differentiator. If we don't, they're not caring about engineering, right? They know if it's a 10,000 square feet roof available, there is no shadow falling.
For them, it's about scale and cost, right?
Yeah. It always, and when we tried to do business development there, we realized that they'll always get you to give them the best quote. Then they'll get somebody they'll know from the neighborhood to meet that price. And you will never get that order anyway. So we have decided not to pursue any B2B as of now.
This was like this was right in the beginning. Like
in the beginning, in the first 3 months, we realized we met a lot of people in Manesar and Narela, and we realized nobody's converting.
Right. So then you kind of straight to that.
And so, you talked about rooftop solar. Is rooftop the only place that it can sort of be deployed, or how's the industry evolving on that front? Like, are there other plays around it, like gardens? I don't know. I mean,
there are multiple plays around it, right?
Yeah.
One variation that we ourselves did in a few farmhouses was create a car parking out of this. Right. If you've been to Medanta Hospital in Gurgaon, it has the entire car parking made of solar panels. Right. So that's what gave us the idea that we can try this, and we pitched it as an option to a lot of farmhouse owners because they had a lot of area available, right? And it looks really fabulous to see the car parking. So that's one way. Ground mounted is definitely the way people go when they're going for the multi-megawatt solutions, right? Floating solar panels, I keep hearing that that's the new big thing which will come up. All these water bodies like lakes and dams that are available, it will be used to put solar panels there. doesn't need acquiring land and all those
Yeah.
things. Yeah. So there will always be newer places where people can put panels out.
But like the fact that you need homeowners,
Yeah.
right? And homeowners, especially in urban areas, I mean, in terms of like, does that act as a roadblock? I mean, in terms of just the size of the market?
It does. It
Right.
does. And we have made peace with the fact that it will open up
Right.
as regulations change.
Okay.
So, for example, there is one policy that Delhi government actually brought in,
Right.
which is called virtual net metering.
Right.
Wherein, let's say you own a roof, but you don't want solar. I don't own a roof, but I need solar. So I'll put panels on your rooftop, and I'll get the benefit of it.
Okay.
Virtual net metering, right?
Right.
Okay.
Like your roof will be rented to me, sort of.
Right.
Energy as a service.
Yeah, but it's not really happening right now. It's
Okay,
just
right.
it's available in theory. But there are innovative ways to make this happen.
Right.
But where we get challenged right now is the apartment complexes. Like, like for example, Mumbai.
Yeah.
We know there are a lot of people, there's a lot of electricity demand there, but we never think of Mumbai as a viable city because it's a vertical city. Gurgaon, a lot of areas are vertical as well.
Right.
There, what's happening is that the apartments they either don't want to pay, if they require, let's say, a 500 kilowatt system, they're not ready to pay a 2 crore. They probably don't have the cash lying around.
Right.
So they would want a loan. Nobody wants to underwrite RWA. Like
Right.
no bank wants to underwrite them. So they would want on an OPEX basis that you install the system and then charge a rent.
Right.
The same thing happens, right? If the banks are not ready to underwrite them, even companies which are doing the OPEX model are not going to underwrite.
You mean like a leasing player?
Lease
Right.
or a rent kind of thing,
Right.
right? So that's where the adoption of solar is hitting some roadblocks there.
Right.
Plus, the decision making is very difficult. Like in the same thing that I talked about in B2B.
Yeah.
In RWA, there will always be 10 Indian uncles discussing and it will never get to a decision.
Right.
Which, while it's very different when you are selling to one house owner, right? He
Right,
understands
right.
when he writes the check. There it becomes almost difficult and somebody will know somebody's uncle to beat your price by 1% and then you lose that order, right?
Yeah.
So we're thinking that in 3 to 5 years time, with some innovations in regulatory processes like a virtual net metering or leasing becomes more of a viable thing in India.
Well, virtual net metering also means more decision makers, right? I mean,
More decision makers. It does, but then there are people who probably own their rooftops and are not using it.
Yeah.
So it might really unlock that.
Right.
And what other sort of clever financial engineering plays are possible in this? Because the reason I asked is I was reading about this company called M-Copa in Kenya, I think, who get their payments through an app and it's as per unit conversion, who don't want to pay that 1.5 lakh in this case upfront.
Right.
Is that room for that in sort of the Indian market? Or
I actually don't think so.
Okay.
Because collection cost would be extremely high in case.
So can you explain? I didn't understand.
So again, correct me if you think I'm wrong. There's a company called M-Copa which sells these electronic gadgets like solar energy or solar panels or whatnot, but people can't pay that upfront.
Right.
So they've put these IoT enabled chips there.
Right.
So as soon as you consume per unit consumption, you have to pay through the app. If you don't pay, the unit stops working.
Oh, okay.
So they've created an payment sensing mechanism there.
Right.
At the moment you stop paying, the unit stops working. So they're centrally controlled.
Right.
So in the solar thing as well, I mean, if someone doesn't want to pay the 1.5L upfront, I guess, as you consume, you keep paying, and the moment you stop paying, the unit stops.
Right.
So
So there is a lot of nuance around this, right? How do you, whether it's a loan versus a lease, or how do you actually structure this as you call it, like an OPEX model for residential customers?
Right.
I have personally always believed that it's going to be really difficult to make the payments, the collection of payments happen from all these houses.
Yeah.
Plus the maintenance bit. So we believe that rooftop solar is the best possible usage of solar panels. Why? Because the electricity being produced from rooftop solar is used locally as well.
Okay.
Right? And it is maintained at the optimal level because the house owner knows it's his property and they want to ensure that the output from solar is at the maximum possible level, right? If it's an OPEX one, they wouldn't care. And they would start putting their, let's say, clothes there. Or I will have to send somebody to ensure that it gets cleaned.
Fair enough,
and the cost of that is not justified. So we have done, and this has been coming from the finance background, this was the first thing that came to me when we started out, right? That because renting it out, you don't have to then convince a customer to pay 1.5 lakh rupees. You charge them a rent over, let's say, 20 years or 10 years time. And there are a couple of companies which have done a great job of this in US. Again, but US is a very different market. The payback period is much higher.
But I mean, you're talking when you talk about this OPEX model, we're looking at from a lease perspective, right? So at the end of the day, the customer doesn't actually own the asset. So effectively, there's deterioration over the long term.
Right.
What about loans?
Okay, loans. We keep talking to NBFC partners and banks every now and then, and we run a lot of financing offers for the customers as well. That you can use a credit card have to pay, we'll give you no cost EMI and all those.
Right.
Surprisingly, there is not a lot of demand amongst for loan, which I know
Because it sounds like a perfect product.
It sounds
right?
wrong, right?
Yeah.
It sounds counterintuitive that people do not want loan in India, right? But these
Not just that, like solar is like, this is the product, right?
Yeah.
Or a product
like rather than paying your electricity bill, you divert that payment towards an EMI and you're done, right? It sounded very easy to in our heads as well when we ran those offers.
Right.
There have absolutely been really low amount of takers amongst all the cities that we have tried these offers.
Right.
And the only hypothesis I have, and it's not proven, but is that these are customers who already own a house, already own a car.
Right.
With the prices falling down, people are able to afford it, and it's not like it's a one-go payment that you have to make.
Yeah.
I told you that it takes 6 months to deliver the system, right? So we have like 3 to 4 installments in which customers make the payment.
Right.
So they're anyway okay, right? What we could offer them is a 6-month EMI or a 12-month EMI. So it's not a huge benefit that they're getting. Right. And we used to think that when we hit 100 orders a month, we'll probably see that customers need loan, otherwise they're not converting. We have hit 400, 450 roofs a month. We are still not seeing that.
Right.
Maybe at a much higher number, we'll start hitting that roadblock.
Right. So I mean, at the moment, most of the guys are putting in equity 100%.
100%.
Right. Right.
And through, because your tech is such an important piece to your value proposition, is you must be collecting some very useful consumer trends data as well, I guess, in terms of energy consumption. Is that going forward? Do you think that can be used to sort of design energy solutions at a broader level, or is it just like very basic right now? That's not something that you're chasing.
Okay, we have not really thought it from the energy solution perspective, right?
Yeah.
We collect data right from the time the customer sees our ad to the time that they convert into an order,
Right.
From the perspective of improving our own sales processes and saving our cost, right? To predict what's the probability of this customer converting at some point of time.
Yeah.
Right? So even the process where the salesperson actually visits the customer's house, the entire conversation that they do with the customer, we try to get as much data possible from that, like how many floors did the customer have, which kind of brand of TV did the customer own, and all sorts of data that you can get to actually predict at a later point of time what if the probability of the customer converting was high enough, then you send your best salesman to go there, or maybe you send the worst salesman to go there, right? So that's the perspective that we are doing our data analytics setup for.
Right.
We are not heard from an energy solutions perspective. For that, we actually, I mentioned about the IoT product that we made for solar, right?
Okay.
Which measures how your solar rooftop system is working.
Right.
We have done a soft launch of our second suite of IoT products, which measures the consumption of electricity in your house as well.
Okay, that's
which is not limited to our solar customers. We started with the idea in our head that this will be a cross sell to our solar customers, but we realized that this is a great product for customers who are living in, let's say, apartments.
Think of it zone, right?
Yeah, co-living guys or co-working out. It opens a lot of new opportunities for us, right? So that's where the energy solutions bit is coming our heads. We have actually 9 IoT devices which all tag to one device, one app, and work to show you how your AC is performing, how your fridge is performing, how you control your AC, control your fridge. We will talk about it more in the next
now I understand the home tech part.
Yes. That's why we want to keep saying that.
Adds up, right?
Fascinating.
So that's pretty much like that's a growth area, right?
That's a growth area,
That
was the second thing which we had to do, right? If you understand how people are concerned about the electricity, and you will be surprised how many people are really concerned about electricity bill usage, right? Because a lot of people of our generation, when I talk, and a lot of VC friends, for example, right? When you tell them that electricity bill is a huge drain on everybody's wallet, they'll be like, no, who cares about electricity bill? Bill gets paid. But that's not really the truth of the average middle class family on the ground, right? If you're paying 5,000, 10,000 rupees a month, you do care about whether you can reduce it or whether you can control.
And especially like in family homes, like I mean, my personal experiences, I had the benefit of living in government housing for like most of my life. But there whenever like we move to like rented accommodation. And then when you see that, like you're getting like 10,000 or 15,000 bills during summer times,
right?
I mean, obviously money is money, right?
I remember I lived in Toronto for almost 8 years, and I used to get that electricity bill I used to pay, and every time there used to be a nice chart which used to show exact units consumed per day every month. Like I used to see the spike on Saturday, Sunday. I knew that Saturday, Sunday I'm home, so heating is on and washing machine is on all the time. So people do like a lot of detailed analytics as well. But
there was a lot of commentary on this guy Richard Thaler, right? Behavioral economics guy. So they basically, I think it was in Canada only that they launched that. Like he's the guy who did the nudge theory thing, right? Like if you want to make people pee in the thing, you need to put a sticker there so that people pee on it. Right. That was his brainwave, which apparently reduced spillage in I don't know.
Well, Netherlands airport.
No, it was in Madrid.
It
was supposed to be in Madrid. So anyway, so this guy kind of believes in those small incentives which change behavior.
Right.
So when it comes to electricity, it was like, that you scored X, your neighbor has scored Y.
Yeah.
So that actually changes behavior on a day-to-day basis, right?
Good point that you mentioned that. Okay, so we have been discussing this in our product meetings, and again, not something which probably we should be saying out loud here, right?
No, please. this is the objective here.
We have been discussing this gamifying this of the electricity consumption and like giving people points if they actually consume less.
Right.
But then, like right now, I have that IoT device installed in my house, and every morning it sends me a notification that you used 16 units in the day. Your AC1 consumes 7 units, AC2 consumes 3 units, and all that, right? And it doesn't make me feel good. So that's been one definition debate that we have been having. That can an app which gives you bad news every morning be a good app? Right. And we have to like think of how do we create this into a positive.
I think it's a fine line, right? Like you do care about your electricity bill, but do you care that much that every day in the morning you want to see your phone tell you?
What are you going to do? Are you going to like really stop using your AC in Delhi summers, or just because your app tells you? Maybe the wastage part 10-20% can be reduced.
Right.
Like if you leave something on and you get an alert that you left something on. Yeah. That's the part I'm okay with.
Yeah.
Maybe you can project on how much you have saved versus using non-solar mechanism. That would be good news every morning. Your net saving for the day are this much.
As it gets into more homes, we'll hear from the customers. The customers are very direct in telling you whether they like this notification or not.
Right. Like you mentioned in the beginning about how Chinese PVs was a game changer, right? But on the other end, we also keep on hearing a political narrative against Chinese PVs, right? Import dumping and all that. Me and Sharad obviously have looked at the clean tech sector outside solar.
Right.
So we do know that at the end of the day, the Chinese PVs are not going anywhere, right?
Right.
I mean, there are very few players with the manufacturing capability here.
Right.
But like, is that some sort of a regulatory risk you see, or you have seen that story play? Like, politicians always project something domestically, and which is different from how they project things internationally.
So this is one sector where I think the government has done good job of protecting Indian manufacturers.
Okay.
Right.
So for residential customers, if you want to avail subsidy, you have to use Indian-made panels.
Okay.
So when I mentioned Chinese-made panels, I just wanted to mention that how they brought scale, which reduced the price. Everybody had to like you knew that you can't start a 50 megawatt factory and generate profits. You have to have a 500 megawatt or 1 gigawatt factory to even stand at the prices on a per watt basis that China was doing. That's the only thing which it did. For the sector that we are in, we have been sort of there's no better word to use this, forced to use Indian-made panels always.
Right.
So we have not seen the impact of anti-dumping duty or anything happening.
Right.
Because we anyway use Indian-made panels for all our customers. Till government subsidies are there, you have to anyway use them.
But like, where does the definition when you say Indian-made panel?
Okay.
I think there is a
there's a lot of nuance there.
Yeah.
So till about a year ago, or not even a year, like about 6 months ago, you could use any Indian-made panels where they were only assembling the panels in India. The solar cells were being brought in from Taiwan or China or wherever, and then there were plants which were assembling them. Now the new subsidy rules which have come in post June 19, they all clearly specify that you have to use Indian panels made of Indian solar cells.
Okay.
So whatever leeway there was.
So that was in June 2019?
2019.
So cells are manufactured in India?
Cells have to be Indian made as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you see any, how's your experience been so far on that?
On the output side?
On the costing side, on the output side as well, performance-wise, do your customers see any difference?
Not really.
Not really.
Right. And we have, and when we started out, there was a lot of customers who we installed without subsidy as well.
Right.
So those are the customers which we have data for now 2 years, 3 years as well.
Right.
With let's say the best Chinese brands available, as well as with our Indian brands available. We have not seen any difference in output till date.
Right.
Maybe in year 27, 23, 21. There will be a difference, but right now the tech specs actually measure up for Indian companies as well. And I have no qualms in taking the names as well. Like we use Vikram, Adani, Tata. These are the three main panel manufacturers that we use.
Right.
And all three are actually up to the mark, right? Standard wise, I don't think they are anyway number 2 to let's say a Trina or a Canadian.
Right. So I guess the point that you were trying to make earlier was that the additional time kind of helped the Indian manufacturers pretty much catch up, right?
Yeah.
And that you see on ground as well.
like, I mean, what lies ahead? Like, like, let's say you have X consumers, X subscribers or customers, and I'm sure you will get to 10x and then 100x. I mean, that's it. Yeah. What do you, how do you get there? Like, what do you think is a missing piece which can accelerate, or you think, it's perfectly fine, I'm on a nice trajectory, and it just brute force, you keep penetrating deeper inside and it grows. And also related to that, in terms of policy, like, do you see any big policy push that can help the sector? Like, I know green bonds is sort of loosely associated, but does that directly fit into your, at your firm?
Great questions, both actually. So the first one, on how we scale from here, right? I think we have found the right geographies that we wanted to be in. Right. We don't need to add more geographies now to scale, at least in the next 18 to 24 months. Right. And we have been growing like 4x, 5x every year. I know that's a low base effect as well, but we think that for the next 3-4 years, we can continue that scale, just going deeper. Like, we don't need to do anything like new,
radically different.
Just use the tech that we have developed. Like, we know that it's working out for the customers. There is not a lot of good competition out there as well. Okay. Which is good and bad in both, but good in the sense that we can just keep doing this till somebody really, really forces us to change our ways. Right. So there is no single missing piece that we see right now. We just need more feet on the ground right now. Put more rupees on the Google ads and the Facebook ads. Sure. And that will get us in front of more and more customers. Okay. So that's the only piece that we are working on. In terms of the tech that we need to develop to make this happen, I think we are almost there on the entire pre-sales piece. It's completely automated. Okay. On the post-sales, there are some chunks here and there to ensure that the customers finish happily as they started, which we are still working on. I think another 3 to 6 months, and we will be set on that part as well. Okay. So nothing needs to be done. On the growth side, I think solar-wise, we are set on a trajectory. We want to continue doing that. Yeah. There's the Home-IoT one, which we are adding up to see if that improves our overall gross margins, overall top line numbers, and that's what we are working on. The second question that you had on the policy side, again, will sound slightly counterintuitive. We would want government to take a step back. Okay. I think government has done what they needed to do. Okay. There is no need for any government subsidy now. Okay. So it will be the right time for the government to just come out and say that, hey, the subsidies are gone. Mm-hmm. Because what happens is every time the tenders come out and there is a 3 to 6 month process of nothing happening in any particular state. Like, for example, in Delhi, subsidy ended last month. Right. Now for the next couple of months, if you want to go solar, you just can't, because you can, but without subsidy prices. Okay. What happens from a customer psyche perspective is that you keep waiting that the next subsidy tender will come up. Yeah. While we have a perfect example in Bangalore, where there has been no subsidy for the last 4 or 5 years, and customers are converting at the same conversion rate, all the metrics being the same, like a Delhi or a Lucknow. So that clearly proves that the price point, even without subsidy, is good enough for customers. Enough, right. There is no need for government subsidy, because what is happening with the government subsidy is that there is no single window approval. So it takes just too much time to deliver the customer.
That's your 3 to 6 month period, right?
So I would rather just take that out. Right. So that's one policy change that needs to happen. The government needs to take a step back. Mm-hmm. And the second one would be like, as the EV, which is not less policy, more macro, right, is like, as the EV world really picks up, right, we expect that to help solar. Yeah. Because the second life batteries is what we are betting on, that there will come a time when net metering will go out in India as well. And you have already seen that in US, the way a lot of utility companies like really grouped together against the solar companies and said that you can't be using net metering to sell me electricity at, let's say, 6 rupees while I buy from NTPC at 3 rupees, right? Yeah. So for a BSES or for any electricity distribution company, it doesn't make sense what we are doing using net metering, right? So at some point of time, that will gain momentum in India as well. We're already seeing some of that happen in Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra and Karnataka and all the news that keeps coming up, right? So whenever that happens, the EV revolution needs to be at a stage where we can use those second life batteries to then sell a non-net metered system at the same prices. That will be the ideal world, right? You can then completely go off grid. You don't really depend on the grid to be available at all. So let's say a tier 4 city, like the city that I come from, Muzaffarpur, where there is 8 hours of power cut. At least there used to be 8 hour power cut when I was there. I don't know what the status right now is. If there's still power cut, you have batteries and you are totally off grid, which will be the right solution for most people.
Right. And I think this was great. Yeah. Time just flew. But I want to ask, we've touched upon it briefly, obviously, in terms of now. I mean, obviously now you're a funded startup, right? You've been through, I think, a couple of rounds, right? 3 rounds, right? Yeah. Right. And I think you also received the benefit of US-India Clean Energy grant. Yeah. I think always people ask, right? When are you are you fundraising? I think in this situation, one is always fundraising, right? Yeah. Like that never stops. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. I mean, I guess in your case, it's more a function of working capital or expansion rather than a function of actually Like, I assume that in terms of the business itself, the viability is already there.
Yeah, unit economics has always been right for us. We have never lost money on any order.
Yeah. So that is not the issue here. Yeah. The issue might be more in terms of, where to take this forward and how to grow it. How has your, like, in terms of, we look at consumer tech, right? You came in 2016. At that time, that was, I think, right at the beginning when the first startup bubble burst in our country.
Yeah,
correct?
Wrong time to start.
Everybody, like, I remember I was quite psyched, and everyone was telling me, why the hell are you doing what you're doing?
Yeah.
And then people used to later make fun that, oh, you came because Modi ji was saying come, and I'm like, no, not really. Nobody makes a decision based on what Modi ji was saying. But anyways, that was always a funny conversation. But in terms of not just about roof, I'm not just asking you about solar.
Yeah.
I'm asking you in general, like, you have gone through the ecosystem. How do you see, like, in terms of, you see a major correction which has already happened, and then people are being more conservative, or you see that, there are kind of waves of good opportunities which are being actually targeted. What's your take on the overall funding landscape?
I think my take will be very biased, right? Because everybody's experience is different. So there could be entrepreneurs who would have, like, received their first check in their first meeting with the first VC, and they might have a very different outlook on this all, right?
Yeah.
I have been through the grind, right? I think I remember when we closed our pre-series A with Pirosha Godrej,
right?
We went through 230 or 240 rejections
before
we did that, right? So, and my Excel sheet is huge of, like, how many no's we heard. But one thing which has really been good in the industry.
You're saying 200, 250 VCs. Like,
VCs,
you're not talking about
angels, all combined.
Right.
Across the world.
Right.
So one thing which is good is that the angel ecosystem has really come up well in India now. Right. Mm-hmm. When we couldn't find a VC to fund us in the first 3 years, we raised 3 rounds of angel, round one after the other.
Right.
First one was, of course, college seniors, which is always good to tap into Kharagpur contacts. So that was good. But even apart from that, like, there are formal channels now to reach out to angel investors, and they have been super helpful as well. So I would like to mention 2 names actually, Pradeep Tharakan and Gaurav Gupta. They have been the right sort of angels, right? Zero interference in day-to-day operations. If you are meeting the numbers on a high-level basis, connecting you to whichever right people they think you should get connected to, and following up with their first round of capital when they knew that no VC is coming up, and we needed capital before we met somebody like a Pirosha. Right. So it's good to see that people are putting money back into the ecosystem from where they made money, right? So these are people who probably are like you and me, Nikhil, like, who work for 10 years. Like, Gaurav Gupta is Asia director at Dalberg. Pradeep Tharakan is with ADB in Thailand, right? So these are people who were working professionals like us, made some money, and are putting it back into the startup world, right? Which is great to hear. From the usual VC scene, I don't know, I meet some of them and I think, like, okay, so now maybe they are going to correct themselves, and a lot of them off the record do laugh at some of the decisions that their own funds make, and deride them as well. But then you open the app, InShorts app, the next day, and then you see that they have funded something even more ridiculous than they did the last time. So I really don't know. There are some great companies that have been that have come out of India with or without VC funding. I don't know how much funding did Zoho or a Freshdesk raise in their first few years, or a Lenskart raise in the first few years. But then I know the usual suspects that people, everybody laughs about when they are not being recorded on a podcast.
But I mean, in terms of, and we keep on talking about, the great Indian middle class, the 300 million people, and if you actually start doing the math of
everything is $1 billion business in India, no? Because you start with 1 billion people.
So I mean, if you look at, like, what constitutes I think middle class from an international humanitarian perspective, like, when they actually do demographic segmentation, it's what, around, I don't know, $20 a day or something. That's the household income, and that shrinks that 300 million number in India quickly to 70 million or 60 million, right? And we kind of we hear that very well because we also have a kind of our own business is also targeting a niche, and we often feel that niche gets blindsided during a conversation with a mainstream venture capitalist, right? Is that something pervasive, or is that something personal?
Very difficult to comment on. Like, our startup is all about the first 10-20 million of this segment,
Right.
People who own houses.
Right.
So I'm not the right person to comment, right?
Right.
And my idea is all focused about, for lack of better words, rich people.
Right.
With rooftops.
Rich people with rooftop, go niche, go deep.
Yeah.
Right.
And even the IoT product that we are building, we don't expect it to be used, let's say, in Muzaffarpur. Maybe as we scale solar up in 5 years' time, if we want to keep growing at 3x, we'll need to go to a tier 4 or a tier 7 or a village, and we'll need to figure out business models to do that.
Right.
But right now, we don't.
That's a different segment. That's a different product.
That's a different product altogether, right?
Yeah.
But right now, anybody who's building businesses for customers outside of the first 20 million, I think they are going to be up for really tough times. I don't see money lying around that people are going to use on all the hundreds of apps that are being made every day.
Right. So on that rather interesting note,
Yeah.
I mean, we love it when we end things on a cynical note because
We make it a point to end on one, usually. We haven't even spoken about India's largest unicorn today.
Yeah.
Which we call RIL, India's largest unicorn.
I mean, I think on first week of January is a good time to end things on a cynical note. But Pranesh, it's been a great pleasure to have you. I hope you had some fun, and obviously we wish you all the best. Things are going great. I'm sure they'll go greater.
May the sun keep shining.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, it's that time. It's that time of the podcast where we throw in
Weird puns.
Yeah. So, anyways, no, thank you so much for spending some quality time. And now I feel very educated about the solar sector.
Yeah.
So I can fake some expertise at the next party we go to. Right?
Yeah.
We don't go to too many parties, so.
No, thank you so much. It was thanks for taking the time out.
Yeah, and on that note, as usual, listeners, I hope you enjoy this episode. Do feel free to send in your comments, your feedback to Transfin Podcast, to ZunRoof, to Pranesh. Reach out, tell us what you think about this episode, and if you have any suggestions on guests, on any other aspect, do feel free to let us know. I think this is it pretty much.
Yeah.
This is Nikhil Arora
This is Sharat Tupran
signing off.